What's going on? I'm Drew, and that's John, and we're happy that you're with us here on In the Lab. This is the YouTube version. So, John, can you tilt that camera up a little bit so we can see the tippy top of your head, maybe?
I think.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Looking good, man. Okay, here's what we got on the show today. I think it's the year that Andre Johnson gets in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think it's going to happen. So, we're shooting this on a Tuesday, it's airing on a Wednesday, and I think tomorrow on Thursday, I think he's going to get the call. Something tells me we're going to get into that.
Okay.
We're also going to talk a little bit more about some wide receivers that you saw at the Senior Bowl last week. You touched on it in last week's show. I want to kind of dig a little bit deeper this week. I've been thinking about it all week long as I dork out and go through my mock draft, my fake mock drafts, simulators. And then we're going to wrap things up by saying and finding out what two things the Texans must do from now until this time next year to make sure that they're in the Super Bowl. But let's start with Andre Lamont Johnson. I think this is his year. He is on the ballot again. He's a finalist. He'll get the call on Thursday night if he gets in, and he'll come out with the other guys at the NFL Honors Show, which I think we're also going to see C.J. Stroud win the Rookie of the Year award, and maybe some other guys win some award, coaching stuff. But Andre Johnson going in, and it's a long time coming, man. How excited are you to see that, if it does indeed happen for him?
I mean, it's such a long wait, you know. And the thing is there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
That's the, you know, a lot of times when things aren't kind of going your way, there's something in whatever aspect, field of work or whatever you're in, you know, there's something you can try something else. Like, man, you know, yeah, you have kids and God, I can't get my kids up for, you know, school in the morning. Okay, well, I try this, I try that, this is one of those things where you've done everything you can. You fought the good fight. The career is over, and now you wait, and your Hall of Fame fate essentially is in the hands of, you know, sports writers, people that have covered this sport for a long time, and you wait, and that's the frustrating part. And so, as Andre waits, we wait, and you know, I think the first time for any player, and I mean, it's a little different because, you know, we're growing up. You know, the Oilers have been around. You know, there have been some Hall of Famers, obviously, back to the AFC days and all that.
Dude, the Oilers litter the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of Oilers.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Almost to a disproportionate amount. I mean, I think there's almost as many Oilers, maybe even more Oilers in the Hall than there are Cowboys.
Right.
At least there's certainly more from the 70s.
Right.
And I think that ought to, anyways.
So there was no, let me say, newness to that. You know, you didn't sit around waiting for Warren Moon, you know, to be the first Oiler to go into the Hall of Fame, you know, or Bruce Matthews or Mike Munchak. You didn't wait for them. Now, there might have been a wait. I don't know if they got on the first ballot or whatever. There might have been a wait. But I think because it's the first one in Texans history, you know, the first great player truly in Texans history, to be that guy, and just the way that he's connected. I thought it was an interesting conversation that John Lopez brought up on In the Lab when I was driving in Mobile. I had them on the Odyssey app, and they were asking about, and I can't remember how he phrased it. He called it the dream meter, essentially. And he was talking about the top 5 most revered professional athletes in Houston. And he had Andre Johnson at 5. He had J.J. Watt at 4. I think he had Earl at 3. He had Akeem at 2, and then he had Altuve at 1. And kind of think about that list going, yeah, well, one of the things that they mentioned about Andre is just he's kind of bridged the gap to a new generation in some sense. You know, obviously when he's playing, you know, he's highly thought of, but it almost feels like there are even more people that know about Andre Johnson now. There are younger people that know about Andre Johnson now. And then this will just be a stamp on it that, yes, Hall of Famer Andre Johnson, and that can be said. And I think that, to me, is part of it, Drew. It's the first time for the Texans. You know, I think Ed Reed went to the Hall of Fame, did he not?
He did,
but he went in as a Raven. That was not.
He was here half of the season.
Exactly. Yeah. So there have been guys that have probably put the Texans helmet on, but this is spent the majority of his career here, set the foundation of his career here. Became the GOAT, became number 80, the the greatest of all time here in Houston. And yeah, there were a couple years at the end where he ended up at Indy and Tennessee, but everything that he did was, for the most part here with the Texans. And he did it with obviously such, respect. I mean, everywhere you go, you wear Texan stuff, and Andre Johnson's name gets brought up, and there's just, from anybody you speak to, no matter what event you go to, combine, draft, Senior Bowl, whatever, people talk about, Andre and the greatness that was Andre. Now they talk about CJ Stroud and Will Anderson now and D'Amico Ryans, but, for a long time it was, oh yeah, Andre Johnson, he was that guy.
So he had Altuve ahead of Hakeem.
He did. Even though the ranking, how he ranked it, he called it the Dream Meter. It was named after a dream. He had dream number 2, which I thought was interesting.
And this is no shade at Altuve, because I think Altuve is the greatest Astro ever. And I thought that was going to be tough to supplant Jeff Bagwell. Yeah, I said Bagwell. But he's got Dream over, or Dream under Altuve.
Dream it too. That's where he had it. So that was interesting.
I respectfully disagree, but I'm sure he's got some good, compelling reasons. I just can't go past that. Anyhow, you know what else is cool about, you bring up Dre? Do you think Altuve is better than Dream?
That's a hard one. I probably would put Dream ahead of Altuve.
Yeah, I think because obviously they're both team sports, but he's one of 5.
Yeah,
Altuve's one of 9.
I mean, also you've got the fact that Dream, led Houston to 3 Final Fours, and had all of that. So at the University of Houston, so there's also that connection.
And the first title, I don't count the AFL title. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't count those. The 1960 that doesn't count.
Oh no, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. He brought the first. Anyway,
right.
Hey, we've digressed.
Yeah.
Okay. Sunday, Saturday, and Friday of last week, the TriStar Collector Show was here in Houston.
Yeah.
I had never been to that. It started, I think, when I was a little kid, like a 10-year-old, when I was a huge baseball card dork. I mean, just love baseball cards. I still do, but I don't, I'm not as heavily involved. My sons now, I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. They're big into baseball cards.
Yep.
And I said, you know what? Let's go out there. They've never been to this. They didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So I sort of surprised them Sunday morning. So we're going to go to this thing. And they're like, well, are there going to be drills and sports and stuff? I'm like, no, you'll see. They got there. They loved it.
Yeah.
And you know what I liked? One of the many things that I liked about it, so much Texan stuff was around.
Yeah.
Now, because of who they were, it's all sports aficionados and guys who are real. Maybe that was a case last year. Maybe that was a case 2 years ago, 10 years ago. But lots of Stroud stuff up. Lots of Tank Dell. Tank signed and Nico signed, I think, this weekend. But it was really, really cool seeing so many people in Texans gear rocking it, because we haven't seen that, man. It came back this year. It came back because of D'Amico Ryans and what we did in the draft and CJ Stroud and everything. But this is a side little corollary. It was really, really cool and just kind of warmed my heart seeing my boys. One of them had on a Stroud jersey, one of them had on a Will Anderson jersey.
Yep.
Because that's what Santa Claus brought them for Christmas. But they were wearing it, and it was pretty neat seeing that kind of. It's been a renaissance of sorts as far as things go in that regard. I don't know.
It's been pretty cool.
Maybe I'm making too much out of it, but it's just awesome, John.
No, I mean, I've told my story before. I went to the Senior Bowl in 21 or 22. I can't remember. I think it was 22. 20, either one.
You were getting laughed at for your Texans gear.
I always rock Texans gear. I always show up in Texans gear. It's just, my work uniform. And so I remember walking in, and I think it was maybe the first year, because I was walking into Hancock Whitney, is the new stadium that they built on the campus of South Alabama. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility, and it's a great facility for the Senior Bowl. And I'm walking in, I have Texan stuff on, and I can hear these 2 jamokes behind me as I'm walking through, kind of snickering, and I hear Texans, and then I hear them kind of laughing, and I wanted to turn. I mean, you know how I am. I wanted to turn around,
ready to beast.
Yeah, and I didn't. I just kind of, what is there to say? And this year it was, I'd be down on the field, and I would see somebody from one of the team. Hey man, you guys had a great year this year. That was really, it was cool to watch you guys and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, it was good. And so the opinion has changed in a lot of different places. I mean, we told our haircut stories and how just locally it's changed. But, it was at the Pro Bowl, there was some video I saw. Some kid was wearing a CJ Stroud jersey, and he was not talking to CJ. He was doing some other thing, catching a pass from somebody else, but he has CJ Stroud jersey on.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just remarkable how far it's come. That 2-3 years ago, I remember we used to kind of joke about whose jersey would you end up buying right now if you went into the team store,
Mm-hmm.
and now you go into the team store, and now like, whoa, do I want a Sting 24, which is what I would get because that's my favorite number. That's what I wore in college. Do you want a Stroud? Do you want a Will? Do you want to get a Laramie? Laramie's been obviously so many Pro Bowls, and do you want a Jalen Petrie, a number 5? You've so many different options now. Nico 12, Tanks is obviously
they're gonna
very
need to stock up on some Tank and some
yes,
Stroud jersey because those are real
no
popular.
doubt.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to see that worm turn in different places. Like for me, it was the Senior Bowl. I wore Texans gear this year, and there was no scoffing or laughing at this particular point. What I found interesting, I think it was the second day, happened to be down on the southern end of the field, the south end of the field, and just I kind of walked the sideline, see who's there, see what's going on, kind of watch different warm up drills, kind of like we would do at our practice, Drew. And so I went down and I just started to watch quarterbacks because I'm not really watching the quarterbacks for anything. Meanwhile, last year I was taking down every note.
Yeah.
Blue shoelaces, steps 6 inches was left foot. Like I was taking everything down to the quarterbacks. And so this year I'm down there just kind of observing the quarterbacks. And I look down and this guy's in a red hoodie and he's got a video camera and he's stopping in front of each quarterback and he's filming. And he pick up and he film the next guy.
Who's he with?
Film the next guy. I look down. Eventually, I can see the front of his jersey, the front of his sweatshirt says Patriots. And I was like, "Yeah, you had 2 decades of not having to do this, and well, guess what? Now you
welcome to the dark side."
Right. Hey, I felt that way for sure. Like, hey, come deal with this now. Live like the rest of the world has lived for a very, very long time. So you would see teams filming, like I saw the Titans filming quarterbacks and Patriots filming quarterbacks, and I know some teams are just getting B-roll, but I thought it was interesting to see, who they were. But I saw that guy in the Patriots sweatshirt filming the quarterbacks. I thought, well, now you can figure out how the rest of us have lived for 2 decades while you lived off a pick 199 from the 2000 draft. So, but it was good.
All right,
good for sure.
Okay, I want to get into the Senior Bowl in a moment, but I want to do this. If the Texans are going to play in the Super Bowl this time next year, what 2 things must happen between now and then? And obviously win more games. Don't say that.
No,
you're not going to say that, but
I got 2. Number 1, they've got to have a top 12 running game.
Okay.
In the league, however you want to define that, you got to have a top 12 running game in the league.
Okay.
I don't know where the run game ended up finishing. It was better this year, but when you have to go on the road in the playoffs, you got to be able to rely on the run game to carry you when weather becomes a factor. And I don't know that the weather was a massive factor against the Ravens. The wind was a little bit of an issue. It was cold. There's no doubt anything's cold to Houstonians, but you got to have a top 12 running game.
I don't know that weather was meeting Devin Singletary in the backfield after he got the handle.
Second thing, you've got to cut the explosive plays in half at least
on defense.
You gave up way too many explosives. In games you lost, it was clear. Like the Browns regular season game, you gave up 6 explosives. And I mean, even if you give up 3, you still probably lose the game, but you might be in it in the fourth quarter. And obviously, if you have CJ on the field, you're going to have a shot. But you've got to reduce the explosive plays defensively, and you got to have a top 12 running game.
All right. I like those. Those will work.
Mm-hmm.
So, to get more explosive even on offense, I love these receivers that the Texans have right now. But you saw a few in Mobile that could add to that could buttress that could be one more stick of dynamite to the whole hassle that's going to blow up the canyon.
Yep.
So who else is going to help blow up the canyon? What are some guys that would fit in nicely, you think, be it round 1, round 2, 3, 4, 5, that really kind of turned your eye? And I know we've mentioned a few, like Roman Wilson from Michigan and Malachi Conley from Western Kentucky. Who else? What do you think? Who are these guys?
Well, I think walking out of there, one of the most complete receivers that I saw, and I think could end up, kind of middle of day 2 potentially, and that's Ricky Pearsall from out of Florida. Does everything well. I think he's going to run better than people expect. He's got glue sticks for hands, just a complete receiver, accelerated away from guys to get separation, runs really good routes, good pacing, good timing. And the tempo of his routes is really good. I think he would fit perfectly in between, if you think about his game is part Tank, part Nico. So I think he fits kind of perfectly.
I like the sound of that.
Those two. Yeah.
I like the sound of that, man.
Good size, 6'1", 200 pounds. Great hands, and the thing is, so Ricky Pearsall, you added to the guys we talked about, Malachi Corley, Roman Wilson, Lad McConkey out of Georgia, is going to run probably in the 4.3 range. He's probably a little bit closer to Tank. So maybe you look at him and think he's a little bit redundant, but I'm telling you, Georgia's offense struggled when McConkey was off the field. And he was tremendous at times in the 2020, throughout his career, basically. But in 2023 in particular, and the Senior Bowl, especially the first day, in fact, I was just watching it a while ago, his routes are just incredible. Change of direction, all that kind of. He's got everything you got. And you play him in a slot, he can return punts, he return kicks, he can do those things if you need him to, if you need that, for somebody. He's got that ability. Thing is, those Pearsall, Corley, McConkey, Roman Wilson, like any of those four fantastic receivers and fantastic options. And I think they're fantastic options on day 2. That doesn't even bring into account the guys that I guess I would say are rated ahead of them. Marvin Harrison Jr. was not in Mobile. Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, all three of the Washington receivers. Those guys. Who?
Brian Thomas from LSU.
Brian Thomas from LSU. Malik Neighbors from LSU.
Thomas is in that area when I'm doing those mock drafts, but he's available.
He's available at 23, and I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I think he's worth that. I think.
He's got size. He's got speed. He's got explosiveness down the field. He can create chunk plays, explosive plays. Yeah, I think Brian, like I said, those are all guys that weren't even in Mobile. The 2 Texas guys, Xavier Worthy and I Mitchell, they weren't at the Senior Bowl. So when you take all those guys that I just mentioned and you throw in the 4, 5, 6 guys that, Jamari Thrash was at the Senior Bowl. I thought he was really, really good. There are going to be options at receiver. And I think it makes this wide receiver class something really extraordinary. And what it also does is it tells you every spot you're drafting, there's going to be a very capable pass catcher wide receiver option in this draft. So if you want to look at a different position where maybe there's not as much depth and you pass at a particular spot. Okay, let's say the Texans look at the options at receiver and go, man, we got a lot of options. I don't think we should look at receiver 23. What about 59? Boy, 59's got a lot of different options. Well, what if one of those guys we think can't get us at 59 but can get at 45? Well, Nick's shown he's willing to trade up and do some things to go get a receiver. And he's done it in the past few drafts. So the thing is when they make a move, and you almost don't even have to make a move unless you absolutely fall in love with a guy or somebody's falling and you're like, wait a second, this is weird. We got to jump all over this. Because you have strength at that position already. I think you can look at the free agency, free agency group, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, et cetera. You can look at that group and go, we can be really selective with that group. If we can get a good contract to a guy, then yeah, let's do it. But if we don't, we're not going to panic because we got all these rookie receivers, and look what rookies did for us last year. So there's such depth in this wide receiver room that I could see them putting priorities like free agency in other spots and then letting that wide receiver, basically fall in their lap on draft night, day 1 or day 2.
That's intriguing. That's really intriguing. I'm excited. You and Mark Vandermeer touched on this in a Texans All Access that y'all, shot on Monday, and it's the hot stove. The off-season hot stove is so much fun around here. Think about what the Texans did last year, what Nick Caserio was able to do last year. Free agency comes on a Wednesday, and it's crickets, and that's just fine. You wait a week or two, and you see all these guys that he just plucks and signs. And that might not be the case this year. He might make a big splash on that first day. But if he doesn't, just chill out. Trust it in, because I think I think he's shown he knows what the hell he's doing, and the Texans are going to be just fine. And I can't wait. John, always fun talking with you.
Absolutely, man.
Let's do this again next week when maybe we're talking about Andre Johnson being in the Hall of Fame instead of will he? I think he's going to get in.